Hey everybody, wanted to let you know that my new book, Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market, is now available on Amazon and has already hit the bestseller lists. We're going to be coming out with Audible soon and hoping to get it into some bookstores, but it would mean the world to me if you went out and got your copy here today, because in this book, I tell never before told stories on my 12 plus year journey in the moving industry. So go get your copy today. Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market, and tighten up.
And I'm answering your question, plus I realize that. But the last thing is we have a real crisis in our country for real. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You are going to be humiliated. Learning how to sell, oh my goodness, it will change your business. It is much harder to do that than to develop a tech company.
At Two College Brothers Moving and Storage, we're proud to be Team Smart Moving. This CRM has been a game changer, helping us become more profitable than we've ever been. I love all the features: sales automation, drag and drop scheduling, and especially the reporting. I can see our top referral partners, lost leads, and profit per job. Everything. It's all there. Before we had a CRM, everything was in spreadsheets and a shared calendar. I was running myself ragged and barely breaking 10% profit. It's not like that anymore. In 4 years with Smart Moving, we've 4x'd our revenue, and because the business is running smoothly, I get to spend time on other things, like talking with you wonderful folks on this podcast. Whether it's your first CRM or you're ready for an upgrade, Smart Moving is the software I recommend. It's truly the smartest move you'll ever make. Check them out and use my link at smartmoving.com/Wade. That's smartmoving.com/Wade to get 1 month free. Welcome everybody back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Sweikel, and today's guest is Brian Hamilton. Brian is one of America's most successful entrepreneurs and a leading expert in entrepreneurship. He founded Sageworks, now called Abrigo, America's first fintech company, which has helped millions of business owners translate complex financial information. He also founded the Brian Hamilton Foundation and Inmates to Entrepreneurs, promoting the power of ownership to transform lives to inmates. Today, Hamilton serves as the chairman of LiveSwitch, which many of you in the audience know of. LiveSwitch is an excellent virtual estimating tool that we use at Two College Brothers. And his work has been featured in major outlets like CNBC and USA Today. And he starred in ABC's award-winning show, Free Enterprise. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Wade. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So you've got quite the resume. You've been a TV star. You've helped a lot of people along the way. Tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get started in entrepreneurship? And just kind of give me a little bit of your background in your own words.
Absolutely. Before I do, by the way, congratulations to you on starting your company. I read your background, so you guys have done great things, and I saw your Google review rating and all that, so it's wonderful, you know.
Thank you.
I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. I mean, I can definitely remember. My mom says since I was 8 years old, but you know how moms are. So I can remember from like 10 or 11, just being one of these annoying kids going door to door selling things. You know, I came up in Connecticut, and where are you based? Are you in Florida or?
Yes, I'm in Tampa.
Yeah, they don't have too much snow down in Tampa, but up in Connecticut, we have a lot of snow. So I would be, doing all the shoveling of the driveways, and I started super early, probably about 8, 9, 10, and it's kind of, and I'll keep it short, but it's a good takeaway actually. I started so early doing it, and I rolled into cutting lawns and then landscaping even after college. I worked for a bank for a little while, but they almost fired me. They definitely would have fired me for sure. So I'm like, well, before you fire me, I'm going to go quit and start my own business. I ran a landscaping company, and then I used that money. I sold that business. I used that money to go to grad school. And then I, what's not in the bio is I ran a chain of coin laundromats before I started Sageworks. I always say that Sageworks was funded by coin laundromat money. It's totally true, because I built that up until like I think we had 5 stores. And then I sold the coin laundromat business in my late 20s to start Sageworks, and the rest is history. But the point is, I've been doing this forever. I love talking to entrepreneurs. I love helping small businesses. Wade, you and I just met, by the way, but I read your bio, and I really give you or anybody credit for being crazy enough to start a business. So I love helping entrepreneurs. And the last thing, and I'm answering your question plus, I realize that, but the last thing is we have a real crisis in our country for real. If you look back 100 years ago, about 50% of people in our country ran businesses. And, 50 years ago, that was 25%, 24%, 23%. Now we're down to 11%. I mean, literally 20 years ago, we were probably, and I'm wrong, but not by a ton, but we were like at 15% of people had their own business. Now we're down like at 11. It keeps going down. Why? It's super hard. So my passion is to make it, help them out a little bit, and by the way, I don't know how weird you want to get today, bud, but I'm kind of weird. My kids tell me this, but I'll go anywhere you want to on the conversation. But it's always a mental game. It's always the psychology. We can teach people how to do a moving estimate. We can teach people how to allot for overhead, right? We can teach people competitive pricing. Those are they're not rote, but we can teach people that. But on the psychology of running a company and the setbacks you go through, and I can't imagine it moving. Oh my goodness, you're moving somebody's couch and it falls through the glass or whatever. All that stuff, like I've been through the equivalent of that, Wade, in my other businesses. So a lot of it is psychology and how you look at life. And so I'll go as deep as you want to. One thing I would say, and I don't know if you cover this, but you got to make money. You got to make profit. I can't tell you how often small businesses don't price the right way. And they price weights such that they can't make a profit. Now, but this is a very long answer to 6 questions, okay? But they get direct labor dollars. They know how long it's going to take. But usually they don't allocate enough for overhead and for growth. So I've made every one of these mistakes, but that's my journey. I've done all this stuff, and I always say I'm an expert in reverse. It's so true. I've made every mistake.
This show is powered by HeyLu's virtual assistant team. They've revolutionized how we run our business and can handle anything from inbox management to social media, research, and yes, even production of this podcast. Want to reclaim more than 20 hours a week in your business so that you can focus on the things that really move the needle? Use our link in the description to get started with your own dedicated VA with HeyLu. And thanks to HeyLu for powering the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I think we all make those mistakes. I recently published an entire book that talks about a lot of the lessons learned and the mistakes I made in the first several years of business, and hope that what took me 7 years to figure out, somebody can read the book and figure it out in 1 year. That's ultimately the goal. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they try to distill those lessons, but sometimes you just have to make the mistakes on your own. I mean, I can't tell you how many books I read in the first 7 years of my business. Yes. And how many podcasts I listened to and trainings I went to. And they told me all the stuff I needed to know, but it wasn't until I actually felt the pain of doing those things that my stubbornness wore away. And I realized firsthand that, there's a better way. Yeah. I guess.
Wait, do you have guys who listen to this or watch? I don't know much about podcasts, but watch this. You have guys. Yeah. As men, we it's a general rule, but we have a hard time admitting our mistakes, admitting our frailties. We just have a hard time with that. I mean, I'm a little older than you. I won't mention numbers here, but I'm definitely older than you are. But especially when I was young, it was like when I had a failure, right? I beat myself up a lot. I still do it, unfortunately. But as men, we not maybe it's pride. I don't know what it is, but if we don't cover anything, you want to take me off the air right now, it's cool. But I do want to convey this one thing. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You are going to be humiliated.
I want to take a second and tell you all about Tighten Up Training. As a co-founder, we've spent months and months and months and a lot of money pooling together resources from some of the best moving companies in the world. And we're excited to bring this to an online platform available to any mover to use at an affordable price. Tighten Up Training has over 200 videos, including mover training, your highest turnover position, so that you can reduce claims, streamline operations, give your team the tools to perform at the highest level of service that generate repeat and referral business and allow you to charge higher prices, as well as sales training, marketing training, business development, leadership. We're adding more content as we speak. We've got legal training in there. We've even got door-to-door training for the moving industry, thanks to Lenny Gray at the Moving Titan Retreat. We've seen a massive explosion of moving companies jumping on to Tighten Up Training since the last retreat, and people are loving it. And when you sign up and mention this podcast, we're going to give you a free 6-week onboarding course in order to learn how to hold your team accountable and get the entire team on the platform so that you can have the best off-season and summer season that you've ever had. Ideally, the best 2025 that you've ever had. So go to tightenuptraining.com, schedule your free demo today, and look forward to tightening up.
And I use that word very much on purpose. You will be humiliated. Something's going to happen to you. Someone's going to embarrass you. You got your relatives, you got your wives, you got your husband telling you how stupid you are to run your own company, all the mistakes you made. I have been there. So the one takeaway before you cut me off the air here is don't beat yourself up when you do something stupid, because you're going to do that once a day.
Yeah. I mean, that's the name of the game. And it's always, as long as you're not continuously repeating the same mistakes. You know, the idea is that you learn as you make these mistakes, and in business, there's so many that you can make. I mean, what were some of the, looking back even to your coin laundry days, like what were some of the biggest things that you know now that you didn't know then, that if you could go back and do it again, you wouldn't make those same mistakes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I try to get practical. My kids, they're in their 20s. They're always telling me how, Dad, you're always up here metaphysical. I would say learning how to sell, like for real. And I've been doing it since I was 8 years old. I mean, it was like baseball. I played baseball, and they would say, I don't know how they do it in Florida, but they'd say, you're a baseball player, right?
I play baseball, yeah.
No, you're like big time, I think. Yeah. So
not anymore.
Yeah.
I played a little in college, but that's as far as I got.
Well, but way better than I am. Once they got to the curveball, dude, forget it. So they would tell you, I don't know if you remember this, the dads behind the backstop. There's always dads behind the backstop, right? They would say level swing. And I'm like, no. When I coached baseball for my son later on, Wade, you know all this stuff, is I learned the right way to swing, which is sort of down and through the ball, right? And you kind of get your stance and down and through the ball. And so what I'm trying to say is, this. I've been doing selling a long time. I got into the public speaking racket. I kind of had to, which still makes me uncomfortable every single time. Like today, I'm always uncomfortable. But learning how to sell, oh my goodness, it will change your business. And my first real professional business was this landscaping outfit that I ran in Connecticut outside of college after the bank. And I was frustrated one night. I was painting a guy's house. I was just trying to make money. And he was an HVAC guy. He was had his own successful HVAC business. We became buddies. He'd bring a beer out. We'd talk at night, 6 o'clock after I'm done. It was like me painting the house. And he said, what's bothering you? Nice guy. What's bothering you? And I said, well, I don't know, man. I'm not making enough money. And so he started asking me questions. He goes, have you ever learned to sell? And I said, what do you mean learn to sell? I mean, it's like a fish in water, man. I'm doing it all. Like baseball. I've been hitting baseballs my whole life. Yeah, but dude, you got to learn how to do it the right way. And that changed everything. Literally the next year, my revenue tripled. My so and this is ancient history. He's still alive. Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Selling, Zig Ziglar, all these famous sales names, the best car sales guy in the world or whatever. I read it all, and that helped me a lot. So I wish I had learned how to sell professionally the right way earlier.
Yeah, and Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, they were some of the first personal development people that
really?
I came across. So
Wow.
I need to go back and re-listen to some of their content and reread up on some of their content, because I just remember their teachings were gold. But I guess what were some of the biggest takeaways in sales that really moved the needle for you?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Let me think about that one too. Well, again, going back to baseball, right? If you hit 1 for 3, little, high school, college, you're probably better, obviously, in high school and college than you are in the pros. But you go 1 for 3, you're in the Hall of Fame. I mean, what an interesting sport, right? Everything else we do is like, hey, I got to be 2 out of 3 or whatever. But baseball is like 1 out of 3. That's all you got to do. And a friend of mine, professional baseball player, said, you know what that is? I go, what? He goes, that's 20 more hits in a season to get from like 280 to 310 or whatever it is. I'm like, wow, really? So I guess, what am I trying? Let me get to it. Is that sales is always a numbers game. I don't care what anyone says. You got a close rate, you got a lead rate, so your mind has to get used to accepting failure. The best baseball players in the world are still only, 1 out of 3, right? So a lot of people, a lot of people get discouraged because they're getting a lot of no's. And I'm like, dude, if you can't accept a no, you are in the wrong business, man. Don't be an entrepreneur. So for me, doing that over and over and over again, like hitting a ball, it becomes muscle memory that people are going to say no to me. And I'm like, okay, next one. And even better than that, let me go play the movie. Even better than that one. Here's where I am now. If I get a no, I'm glad, because I'm like, okay, I'm closer to the next yes. It's so crazy, but that takes a lot of rejection.
I mean, you got to have thick skin to be an entrepreneur, and if you don't handle rejection and aren't resilient, you'll eat yourself alive. Yeah. And that goes for sales, but that also goes for managing people, selling people to work for you, and to be able to follow your processes and your systems. So I'm with you on that. Is there any practices that you did yourself to basically try to thicken up your own skin and
make the goal high, keep the vision high? But by the way, landscaping, laundromats, tech, I've done all this. I remember, you got to keep that goal high, right? You got to see if your goals and your drive are here and your resistance is there, you're in good shape, right? This is the opportunity zone, right? If your setbacks and failures, whatever, or the way you look at yourself, if it's up here in a bad way, and you know what I mean, and your drive is here, you got an issue. Meaning, we want our goals to be set. I always write my goals down. I've always been, it kind of came to me a little bit naturally, just to be honest, is visualization of what I want to be, the house I want to be in. But we keep our desire here and our setbacks there, we're going to be okay. But if our setbacks are up here and they're above our desire, it sounds so simple, Wade, but boy, it's a big deal. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, when I was starting out, hey, you're right. You have to have thick skin. You got to, persistence and resilience. But what I try to do is, how do I get that? And so I work with people who come out of prison, murderers. Geez, I've done it all, right? People with a DUI to all the way they murdered somebody. God forbid, right? I work with those people. I'm like, look, we got to keep your goals way up here, and you got to be on those goals, because every day someone's going to be chipping away at you, knocking you down. So setting goals, writing them down, and it's huge,
Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part, this resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email. Yeah, I mean, I've been practicing a lot of NLP, and it's basically visualizing like what would it feel like if I achieved these goals. And when you can do that on a daily basis and you put pen to paper, I think there's something magical about writing things down with a pen and paper. I mean, you can type stuff out too, but I don't think it's as effective. And you visualize it and you feel that, and you maybe drive around a really nice neighborhood where you see the dream houses that you want to live in, or, I've got, a boat that I'll drive through all these canals that have all these beautiful waterfront mansions. And it's like I'll do it by myself sometimes. And it's like a visual exercise, ride my bike through the neighborhoods, whatever, just really feel it, smell the fresh lawn trimmings. And it keeps those things front of mind, and it activates the theory behind NLP is it activates the subconscious to start going towards those goals. You mentioned some stuff metaphysical that you were kind of big into, some things there. Like what's your takeaway on
things like you just said? That is thinking on that level. Absolutely. Seeing things before they happen. Really. Well, I mean, just to get super practical, right? When I was starting out, I messed everything up, but in my day, they were audio cassette tapes. You probably read that in a history book, right? But they were cassette tapes. You pop them in. But I was listening to these people, these experts all the time. And the way I always look at it is, really, seriously, like during the day, you get some wins, but you're taking your beatings, right? I mean, you got to upset customer or, that's going to happen. Period. But when you're driving during the day, on the weekends, at night, what are you reading? You know what I mean? Where are you? At your social media? But I've always, been a huge proponent of what you're talking about. NLP, I remember a little bit about that. I studied some of that stuff, but it really is just getting your mind on other things and learning from people who really know. That's why these podcasts are great, because somebody's going to pick up one idea from this. You see what I mean? But trying to see yourself in that situation. I'm getting to the age now. I tell too many stories. But
that's what podcasts are for. We got time to tell stories.
I don't want to be annoying. But when I was a kid, my old man was he never graduated from high school. He got his GED later. But I was the first person in my family to go to college, and we, guys like me always want to say we're rags to riches, but the truth is, I did kind of grow, And anyway, when I was a kid, going to your point, and I mean 5 and 6, if I want to hang out with my father on the weekend, he had part-time jobs, In the day, you didn't have a leaf blower. You had to rake the leaves and trim the edge. And we would go down from, first it was in Bridgeport, Connecticut, then Milford, Connecticut. And we could look it up, 8 miles to Southport, Connecticut, the land of the Great Gatsby. Holy crow. You could do a Google on that now, and the mansions and the pillars. And I was 5 years old, going to your point, and I'm looking around. I'm like, holy crow. Like it's 8 miles from where these guys live to where I came up, right? And what I realized, I started running into these people called entrepreneurs, Wade. They come out in khaki shorts, and they seem like they had a better life. They weren't, and there wasn't like burned out buildings or it was like nice lawns. And I was like, that's for me. And I mean, young. And here's the thing, because you got me on a real hot topic for me. Here's the thing. If I had listened, it's so true. If I had listened to anybody, smarty pants college people, or if I had listened to anybody who was smart or logical, I would have never made it. I would have never made it, man. I'm telling you, I would have never made it, because the odds, it looks so overwhelming, So you got people, Wade, you started your own company, man. Really, I commend you. I mean that. That is hard, right? Especially in your business. I never did that one, but I'm like, whoosh. But people will probably say, well, how are you going to get that house? How are you going to, you're only doing moving. I'm only at this scale today. That doesn't say I'm not going to be more in 5 years or 10 years. You see what I'm saying? You listen to people who will clip you back. And you got to get away from those people. And sometimes that's even family members. They're the worst, How are you going to do this? How are you going to do it? I can't tell LiveSwitch. My last company was very successful. Let's just be honest. I mean, I don't know, and I grew that from an incubator. And I really did. It wasn't just me, but I did. But even with LiveSwitch now, I'm in here and get the same old naysayers. Well, what about that? What about that? How are you going to compete with Zoom? And how are you going to? I'm like, oh, brother. So you got to really be thinking up here. And and I would just, man, I'm telling you, this being on like this podcast or being around other movers, one of the hard things about being an entrepreneur, Wade, is it's, and I had this palpable. I mean, I remember like that feeling of isolation. I'm alone. It's happening to me. I'm the only guy it's happening to. So getting around other people in your community who have gone through similar things, as long as they're not negative,
Yeah.
but that stuff is vital.
One of the worst parts about owning a moving company has to be finding quality movers and drivers. Trying to run all the job ads takes up time, and then you schedule guys to come in for interviews and they never show up. It's a massive headache. Well, let me tell you about a good friend of mine named Winston who runs a company called Move Up Consulting. Move Up specializes in hiring and recruiting for the moving and storage industry, and they do all the lead generation for mover and driver candidates. They have a fully built hiring CRM, plus you get a dedicated account manager who phone interviews and screens all of your candidates. Once they find qualified candidates, they schedule in-person interviews for you and your management team so you can make great hires. They even handle all the appointment confirmations. It's that simple. To start building a better moving team today, visit moveupconsulting.com and tell them Wade sent you.
Yeah, it's lonely at the top. And when you're an entrepreneur in the beginning, you don't really have a community, but it's so important to go find that community.
Yes.
And I don't know how much you know about all the stuff that we do in the moving industry, but we host the Moving Titan Retreat, where we bring together these entrepreneurs, these moving company owners and service providers that are entrepreneurs in their tech space or whatever they do to support the moving industry. Yeah. And we host the conference where we also bring in, high performing speakers, but half the magic of our conferences is the masterminding and the networking. And that's how it originally started. We first gathered in Airbnbs, and then now we're turned it into a full scale conference. Yeah. But that mastermind effect is so powerful because you don't get a lot of opportunities in your own backyard to network with high performing entrepreneurs. Sure, you might meet some other small business owners and stuff, but there's like calibers to business owners. There's your business owners that are just satisfied keeping it small, being an employee, thinking small. It's a job to them. And then there's, people that are kind of pushing for something else, but we want to get around people that are so far ahead of us or thinking so much bigger than us, because every time we walk away from those conferences, or I walk away, at least I can speak for myself, there's like a new fire lit inside. And it's just that effect, that mastermind effect of just being around that magnetism and that energy and that visionariness, because it's sometimes, you go through the grind, the struggle, the loneliness of being an entrepreneur, and you get discouraged. And if you don't have those people that are pushing you, I like to say you should spend 30% of your time with people that are farther along, 30% of the time with people who share your vision but are on your level to push each other and hold each other accountable, and then 30% of your time helping people that share a big vision, that have similar values, but they're below you in terms of your success, and helping them because of the law of reciprocity. And then 10% of your time by yourself, just daydreaming and working on yourself and just, taking care of yourself. And, the masterminds and getting around a community, whether it's, a local community of your highest performing hometown titans, so to speak, or people in your industry that are dominating, really picks you up.
Yeah. Well, by the way, that term mastermind, you already know this. I can tell by some of the terms you're using, but the most important books I've read, I've read them all, like, 300-400 books. I mean, maybe more probably. but Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill changed me. That book is, as you know, because you're mentioning that term mastermind, that book was written 100 years ago by Napoleon Hill. He interviewed the top entrepreneurs, not just entrepreneurs, but government people. What made you so successful? It's not even a long read. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Unbelievable. And wait, I bet you haven't read this one. 64 pages. As a Man Thinketh. As a Man Thinketh, 64 pages. That might be the best book I've ever read on some of the stuff you're talking about. Yeah, that stuff will change you.
I think I read that a while back, but I'm going to write it down because I need to revisit. I mean, I need to revisit all of these. I mean, they're all classics. Napoleon Hill has a lot of good ones. He's, what's the other one? Laws of Success.
Yes.
The Laws of Success. That's a long one, but it goes really deep.
Like this thick. I read that back in the early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say 400, 500, 600 pages, something to that tune. I think it was like 25 hours on Audible or something crazy, but it goes into the Think and Grow Rich principles in very, very deep detail. So,
very deep detail. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Want to know what the silver bullet for growing your business is? USA Home Listings. USA Home Listings has a myriad of marketing services that are essential to every single moving company. It blows my mind when I have conversations with people who reach out looking for help, trying to get leads, trying to get the phone to ring, that aren't doing mailers and aren't subscribed to USA Home Listings. The data there is so invaluable, and it's not just home listing data, even though that's an awesome, super easy, super intuitive feature that they provide where you can filter out all of the homes that recently went under contract or got listed in your neighborhood, and a new coming soon feature before it even hits the MLS that you can filter out through zip codes, towns, cities, counties, prices. But that's just one small feature that they do. They also have turnkey mailing services. They'll help you design your postcard, a postcard that actually gets results. If you've tried mailers in the past and it didn't work, it's probably because you didn't have the right elements on your postcard. And they also have a social media division. So check out usahomelistings.com. It's an essential addition to all of your marketing needs before you do any other marketing. Check out usahomelistings.com.
I would say this again, not to be an infomercial or anything like this, but really, I've really been around a lot of blocks at this point. If you read and take in that positive sort of mental protein, and if you work hard, and finally, you got to be open. Really, you have to be open to feedback. If you do that, you will win. I have never met anyone in my career, knock on wood, who you do those things, you're going to win. So remember that when you get these setbacks, and believe me, I know you have them. I can't imagine, but I've been there. So,
I think reading it like stimulates a part of your brain that you don't always use in other activities. Like, Audible and listening to stuff is great too. I'm a very audio oriented learner, but there's just something different about actually reading words on a page and having a pen and marking it up as you come across key points and underlining it and starring it and putting brackets around things. And just, I just feel like it activates a different part of your brain and your subconscious that you don't really use that often unless you're reading. And it just, I don't know, there's something to it. I don't know the science.
No, there definitely is. The biggest mistake I've made, I put a TV in my bedroom. I should have never done that. I didn't realize how much reading I had done, but then I put that freaking TV in there, and you got Kim Kardashian and all this crap, and it's like eating like Snickers bars all day long. You know what I mean? But reading is better for you. It's true.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit so the lawn care business or maintenance business, and then the coin laundromat business, those were kind of blue collar-ish type of businesses. Yeah. I'm assuming you started it because you didn't have a whole lot of capital and they were low barriers to entry.
That's right.
How did you bridge the gap between kind of those blue collar service style businesses to a technology startup?
Yeah, thank you. I don't think I've been asked that. That's a great question. You're right. Good guess. I started those other businesses because I didn't have this thing called money, right? So, and then
Most of the start moving companies, it's
yeah,
a low barrier to entry, but a high barrier to success.
yeah, that's true. And I mean like no money. So, but what it really interesting. I had the laundromats going. I always think about my life. Like if I had gone from 5 stores to 100 to, what would my life have turned out like? I don't know, but I have to say, um, like playing ball in college or whatever it is, there was a point at which I was like, hey man, I kind of got this down. That's like, look, I got it down. You know what I mean? I know how to swing that through the ball and all that, but I wanted to do something that might scale bigger or whatever it is. Was it ego? I don't think so, because what happened was, because of my banking experience, 9 months, but I had worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. I knew that entrepreneurs, Wade, are really usually pretty good at moving the furniture and covering or whatever, that type of stuff. They're not so good at understanding what's happening in their businesses financially. So I got together with a buddy of mine, Sarah Torval, and I said, I think I could take all this financial stuff, the numbers, and develop an expert system, early AI, it really was, and convert those numbers into plain language so that when Wade is getting, all this stuff from his CPA that he may or may not know how to read, income statements, balance sheets, tax returns, I can distill all that down into a plain language report, a report card, right? And here's how you're doing with liquidity. Here's how you're doing with profitability. Here's also how you can improve. And so that product, which is out there now, it's, my goodness, millions, maybe billions, who knows, of reports being generated on that thing. Even today, I developed that product called Profit Sense, and that became a tech company. But it was really, and this is important, it was really on solving a problem that I saw. You see what I mean? And as entrepreneurs, we are problem solvers, right? We are that Rubik's Cube or whatever, we're moving it around. And so I saw that problem, and I'm like, well, technology can solve that. And that's how I morphed into that. But I want to say this, and I know this is true. It is harder to run a landscaping business or a coin laundromat, maybe a moving company. I don't know. It is much harder to do that than to develop a tech company. And I don't think I would have ever developed a large tech company, Wade, if I hadn't done laundromats, because it's all about blocking and tackling, like in football. That's what I used to play, by the way. So you know what I'm trying to say? So it all kind of blended together. And I think even to this day at LiveSwitch, it gives us a huge competitive advantage, because a lot of people in tech, unfortunately don't have this thing, what's it called? Common sense, so you can't run a moving company. You can't run a landscaping business if you don't have that. So it really worked well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when you take me through the stages of growth through that tech company. I mean, I imagine, like, did you get it VC funding, or did you grow it organically? I'm curious to hear like how the evolution of that.
How much time do I have?
We've got about 30 more minutes.
Well, I'm not going to talk too long about it, but okay. This is a great example. This is a great example of my life. So I had the laundromats, and they were going well. I made money and all that, but I didn't have a lot of cash, but I was doing well, good income, right? And so I go out and I go into these little entrepreneurial events or whatever, and I meet these people called venture capitalists, and like, very different from entrepreneurs, by the way. But and I would talk to them, hey, I've got this idea for a business, and what do I need to do? You need $1 million. And I'm like, and this is a long time ago. This is 1998. I'm like, well, I don't have $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, well, will you give it to me? No, we won't give it to you, but that's what you need. And I'm like, really? $1 million? And I swear I would go to well, if you're a software company, you need $1 million and this and that, whatever. And I'm like, I don't have that. So what I did, and I don't want to sound clever, but hear me out, because there's people here, guaranteed, Wade, and they're listening to it and they're like, oh yeah, I get it. So I'm like, okay, tell me what you need to do to start the company. Forget about the million, but set it aside. What do you need to do? You have to develop a software program. I said, okay, great. Let's keep going down. What do you need to do? I knew nothing about tech. Zero. What do you need to do to develop a software product? Well, you need software. And I'm like, you mean programming software? Yeah. Well, what's that? Well, like, for example, C++. I'm like, okay. And I'm writing it down. This actually happened. I'm like, how much does that cost? Well, I don't know, $79, whatever. I'm like, all right, okay. So $1 million less $79. I go down to Office Depot, and now I'm at $1 million less $79. Okay, what else do you need? Well, you need someone to program it. I'm like, okay, what do they cost, right? This is so important. Oh my goodness. No, I did not get VC funding. No VC would have touched me. I'm too weird for those guys. You know what I mean? Even though I went to business school with a lot of them. So I'm at $1 million minus $79. And you need a software programmer. And then I partnered with Sarah Torville. She was a programmer. We developed Sageworks, Wade, a multi-billion-dollar company, like for real. I mean, a big company. We're in like a huge percentage of the banks in the U.S. for like $20,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and so if I had listened to the people that were the experts, you need $1 million, you need this, you need that. Well, wait, how are you going to do that? When you reach this, you can't do that. If I had listened to them, there would be no Sageworks. And that is a true story. And so we grew it organically. Now, we did get capital from individuals later, but nowhere near the numbers that were being quoted to me in the beginning. And by the way, I've tried to lower my revenge impulse, whatever that nasty thing, right? But later on, all those venture capital people were chasing me, which I'm not like prideful about it, but I'm like, I'm more like just amused. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Why didn't you catch me in the beginning?
It's a good feeling when people don't believe in you, and then all of a sudden they start, wanting to work with you later on the road once you've proven them wrong. I noticed that with my moving company. I was honestly, when I first started, I was in college. I was in a fraternity with a lot of wealthy kids that just got money from their families, and it was a big, pissing contest whose parents gave them the most money. And my parents didn't give me that. I mean, I had to pay my own rent in college. So, I was starting this moving company. I was honestly a little embarrassed to tell people that I was doing this blue collar work, doing this moving company with these, kids that were really well off and never had to work in their life. But I was like, you know what, like, I got to make money. Like, I love this idea of entrepreneurship. Like, this is so much fun to like create my own destiny. And it was funny because once like word started to get out in the fraternity, all these people that I thought would like kind of make fun of me for doing it, all of a sudden started wanted to work for me. And I've noticed it was more of a facade that they were like, too bougie to work than it was the fact that they also didn't really have what they represented themselves as having. And I think they just thought it was a cool idea that I was starting a real business. And I remember my brother, when I had first started my business, one of my family members said, "Hey, I hear you're an entrepreneur now." My brother chirped in. He's like, he thinks he's an entrepreneur. And I was like,
that's what brothers are for.
Yeah.
That's what family members are for. Yeah,
exactly. And those things pushed me though. And then ultimately he worked for me for a little while. So, and 12 plus years later, still doing my thing. So, you need that a little bit. I mean, the right person needs that. Some people, they're going to get discouraged by those comments and they're going to show up and go away, and they just weren't cut out probably from the right cloth to be an entrepreneur. But when that is what fuels you, that's a good sign that you're meant to be an entrepreneur.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like I don't know how to assess this, but I've really come to this, right, in my 60 years on the planet, is I think to be successful, you need a little chip on your shoulder somewhere. Not hate, not revenge, not negative, but you need something like, I want to prove something, I don't think if you don't have that, I don't think you're in the right business, really. So I totally get what you're saying. There's like, I don't know you, right? But nice guy and all that. And I try to be nice with people too. but down deep, I'm like, I got something that I really want to prove to myself, to the world, and whatever. And if you don't have that, yeah, it's hard to really make it win.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious to hear how you got involved in TV, with the Free Enterprise show. I
Yes.
want to hear about that, how you got involved with helping inmates,
Yeah.
and CNBC, all this stuff. Like, media is fascinating to me. Broadcast communications was my major in college,
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
So, part of the reason I scratched that itch with this podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, how did a laundromat turned tech startup translate into helping inmates, getting a TV show, and doing all that?
Yeah. You're trying to tie it together. Go, good luck. But I would say this. Everything I've done is trying to solve a problem. Story. Orange County, come out of Orange County, North Carolina. Minimum security prison. I used to be pals, or am pals, with Reverend Robert Harris. I love being around him. He would go to the prisons and do the ministry, the Bible thumping, whatever. Beautiful person. I'm a white Irish Catholic guy. He's a Black Baptist minister from Oxford, North Carolina. Go figure. But we were friends, and he would go around to the prisons. This is key, actually, to what you're talking about. And I remember during a break, guy comes up to me with orange jumpsuit, the whole thing. 1992, Wade. You weren't born then.
I was. I was born in 90. I was 2. I was 2 years old.
1992. Comes up to me during the break, and I say, "Hey, what are you going to do when you get out of prison?" I'm going to go get a job. And I'm thinking, I don't want to discourage anyone. So I'm thinking to myself, oof, that might be hard if you have a record. That was the light bulb moment for inmates to entrepreneurs. Hey, when you get out of prison, you're not going to get a job, probably, unfortunately. Still true, by the way. But you can go start a small service business. And Reverend Harris and I would go around the prisons, and we started teaching the guys, mostly guys, how to start businesses. And my point is, it was to solve a problem. And the greatest entrepreneurs are good at that. And that organization is still going 32 years later. And we've reached like 1 million people. We're in, I think, every state of the United States. We're like in countries abroad, the whole thing. But it all started from solving a problem, and everything I've done. So the TV show, Free Enterprise, was about my work in I-to-E with the inmates. And they approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to do a show?" I'm like, "Oh, why not? I'll do it." But that's been a great experience for me. And I've learned a lot about life in working with people in prison.
And so basically that partnership with the Reverend translated into creating the enterprise to help people. And somebody caught wind at the networks that you were doing that and basically ran the show. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I got approached, just as an analog here, about 10 years ago, something like that. I can't remember, but the real, what's it called? The Real Women of Real something, Real House Makers, Real
Housewives
of something. Yeah. And she was the producer of that show, actually. She contacted me and said, "Hey, we want to do a show about you helping people in prison." I was just too busy running Sageworks. So I just punted on it. And then later on, I came back to it because I had more time. But it's a really great thing. I love that because actually we really do help real people. So it's not just BS,
Gotcha. Love that. Love that concept. I'm going to have to go look up some old episodes of that.
Yeah,
what years did the show run?
Well, I did up till last year, actually. I just so busy with LiveSwitch now, I can't do it. But
gotcha.
I think 2022 and 3, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to look that up. I'd love to watch you on there. That sounds really interesting. So tell me how you got involved with LiveSwitch. What did that process look like?
Sold my company 2018. to a PE outfit. That's kind of like a venture capital guy on Squared or whatever, right?
Yeah, we're working on something in the moving industry with PE right now.
Yeah. Well, guard your wallet. Seriously.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I sold the company in 2018, and then I was hanging out, and I was like, man, I feel like I can do this faster and bigger. And then I wanted good people. Hey, if you're not in business with good people, you got huge problems. So good people, growing industry, something where I could bring my product experience to bear, because at Sageworks, we developed a whole bunch of products and I was really involved in that. So I wanted good people, growing industry, something where I would add value. And then I met Jared Venema in this outfit up in Vancouver. And it was great, peanut butter and jelly type deal. Great dude. And then I invested 3 years ago. And so, here I am again.
Awesome. So tell me about, where LiveSwitch was when you got involved and where it is now and where it's going. I know we use LiveSwitch, but for people who may not, or I'd like to give you a chance to just talk about, what benefits it has and where it's going.
Yeah, I'll start at the beginning of the movie. Is we had a video SDK, which is the sort of from the ground up, the media streaming portion of an application. And we used to carry it around and, hey, Wade wants something for moving. This guy wants something there. And it was a service company. To Jared's credit, he knew my product experience. So he was like, we want to become a product company. So then we perfected the platform, which is incredibly hard to do in video. I mean, I'm amazed it ever works, to be honest. I mean, I shouldn't say it, but it's true. Video is crazy. Even Elon Musk can't get it right, But we perfected that. And then we looked for end user applications like LiveSwitch Contact, like LiveSwitch Concierge. We built those off of that platform. So where are we going? We want to be the preeminent provider of video technology to every small business in the world. That's what we want to do. I want to help those guys. Sorry, I'm from the Northeast. Everybody's a guy, but I want to help those people because I know how hard it is to run those companies. If we can help somebody increase their margins by 2 or 3% in every business in the world, man, I've achieved my personal dream. So any application that will help people use video to reduce costs or make more money, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I know LiveSwitch is big in the moving industry. A lot of movers are using it right now. I know you guys have sponsored several of our events or retreats, and you've really kind of carved out a niche in moving. What other industries are you carving out niches in?
Trades, home services, landscapers, tree people, sod installers, pool people, electricians, plumbers, If you work with your hands, man, you're our friend. That's really.
Yeah.
That's
I think that's an awesome niche to be in. What are some use cases for the technology for home services, and especially?
Well, as you know, the biggest one is, and I know this one personally. My goodness, when I used to do landscaping, Mrs. Dolly would call me or whatever, and I have to go out and meet with her and give her an estimate, whatever. But what we've really been really focused on is, hey, she doesn't really want to see you, and you don't necessarily want to drive 20 miles to go see her. So let's get you a quick video connection, get a scene of the action. We store that in our database for you as a user. And I guess you call it virtual estimates, but you don't have to drive, right? That's a huge one. But Wade, fascinating. That is definitely how we're used. But the other way, and who knows how these things happen? It's crazy, is sort of a little bit CYA documentation. Hey, this is what we saw before we got there. This is what is there afterward. And we store that file so that our customers have documentation of the work they did. And that may have more value than the other stuff. It's really weird,
Interesting. What do you see the future of LiveSwitch doing? Are you guys are you developing anything new, or are you just perfecting a single, service?
Yeah. When I got into laundromats, the guy that I bought the laundry equipment for said, "Look, keep the machines running, keep it attended, and keep your store clean. Technology is all about basics, making sure that it works. And by the way, we're in video. Oh my goodness, you got a mover and they're out in a swamp somewhere or whatever. We're going to have to teach them to do an async recording. That is hard. So right now, perfecting what we've got, making sure that we have everything in the platform way that we need. And then you listen to the customers and they will tell you about other applications that they need. So I've always followed the customer. That's kind of what we do.
Gotcha. So what's next for you? I mean, you're so accomplished at this point, but you seem to be the type of person that's always stretching and trying to get to another level and do a different thing.
Yeah.
Hey, I love it. I'm the same way. We're Renaissance men. We do all kinds of things across.
Yeah, it's the only problem. It leads to a lack of sleep. But I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm not going to answer, but not because I don't want to. I would say this: the way I always look at every life is that in the human experience, right? Wade's a good guy. He's out there striving. He wants to do well. Like, how big of a mark are we really going to make? I mean, honestly, like how many Roman emperors can you name? I mean, really, these are people, they ran the whole world, right? Probably not many of them. So my point is, what I try to do is focus every day on what's here right now. How can I serve better? How can I do more? And that's what I want to do. So if, somebody comes to me and, has something where I can really help out in something, then I'm all game. I was going to get into public service, but I had a bunch of people, they wanted me to run for governor a couple of years ago. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's like, talk about a mess, right? Who does these things? Crazy. But I really want to build LiveSwitch into be a world-class brand. I think there's a lot more we can do, but it's really the day by day of just trying to, figure out how to solve problems. Like the story I told you about prison,
Love that. How can people get a hold of you, Brian?
I'm really easy, actually. It's Brian, BRIAN at brianhamilton.org. And I should give my LiveSwitch thing. They say, give your LiveSwitch thing. But it's my personal email is brian at brianhamilton.org. I love hearing from people, by the way, and I return all my emails. And I return letters I get from the prison. So brian at brianhamilton.org. You can also get me at brianh at liveswitch.com. But
awesome. Do you have any social media handles that people can follow you on?
I do, and I do. But I shouldn't say this, but they're managed. So but I have a foundation, brianhamilton.org. And so that has social media and all that other stuff. So
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much for coming on the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. This has been a pleasure connecting with you and hearing your story, and look forward to staying in touch. And I'm definitely going to go back and watch some of those episodes. I can't wait to see you on the big screen.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Wade.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Before we wrap up, I want to thank the team at Hey Lou for making this show happen. Hey Lou is a virtual assistant placement and management platform owned by a fellow moving titan, and they provide the production for the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. But here's what's really amazing. Their virtual assistants do way more than just podcast support. From managing my crazy schedule to handling client communications, data and KPI analysis, and even sales support for a fraction of the cost of traditional salaried in-house employees, they're truly a secret weapon behind Two College Brothers' growth. Curious how a VA could transform your business? Check out our referral link in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you'd like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for a Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.